Occasionally, if I'm not too tired and I lay down in bed for the night, I might pop out of my body or have an out-of-body experience. In this particular case, it was about maybe 2 months ago, that's what happened. I left my body and I was in my room. And I noticed there was somebody else in my room. There was a short, fat, older, kind of gray-haired woman dressed in gray. I guess she was kind of like a stereotypical kind of witch archetype. And she was just sitting in a chair that didn't exist, her chair. It wasn't a physical chair, but she was sitting in a chair in the middle of the room, and she said nothing. And I don't remember if I actually spoke with her or not at that moment. I think I might have said something to her and she didn't reply. And I thought, well, that's very strange. And I went back towards my body. I'm still thinking, what should I do with this entity here? I went back towards my body, I turned to go back towards my body, and I noticed that the room that I was in happened to be a very small room. But now I noticed that there was an extra door where there was a wall that had stairs leading out that went up. And the perpendicular wall to that, where there was a window that looks outside, was now a doorway to a much bigger room, very, very nice room. The room in is not very nice. It's kind of an old building. It's not very nice. But this was very nice. This was like fine wood, and at the end of the room there was, well, the room extended maybe 40 or 50 feet, like maybe 30 feet, no, maybe even more, 20 or 30 feet into the room there was kind of a bar, and on the other side of the bar there was a huge bed that looked very luxurious, very kind of high-end, shiny sheets and all that stuff. And there people dressed in like tuxedos and this kind of thing, very well-dressed people, all very attractive people, beautiful. The beautiful people started coming down the stairs in couples, and they were chatting and talking and laughing, and like you would if you were going to a party, coming down the stairs into my room, through my very little room, into the big room where there was a party beginning. And before I decided to kick anybody out, I went into the room to see what was going on, and they were having a really nice party. And then they started having like an orgy in the bed. And more and more people were joining. And it was at that point that I said, okay, everybody, can I have your attention? You have to leave. And they kind of like, who is this guy? And then I became really forceful, and I began forcing them out. And they were getting annoyed and offended and anything, but I was forcing them all out, and I managed to force them back all out of the fake room, this kind of multi-dimensional room, out of my room and out the stairs that appeared. The whole time, this gray woman was sitting in the middle of the room, and I realized that she was the organizer of this event. She was the one that somehow was able to open these doors from my room into these lower astral rooms. And I got up or moved towards, I don't know if I have the sense that I got up, but I don't know if I was sitting or not, but I moved towards her in order to get her out of the room too, and everything went black. I don't know if there was a light on. I mean, when I went to bed, there wasn't a light on, but in this lower astral realm, I could see her just fine. So there was some kind of a light in the lower astral that I could recognize her and everybody else by. In my room, the room was dark. Everything went dark, but she was still there, and this was my instinct or my natural response was to go and turn on the light in my room. Even though I was in the lower astral, I couldn't actually flick the switch on. That's how the memory is stored. Maybe something else was actually happening in that moment, but the way my memory stored that was, you were trying to turn on a light. How do you turn on a light? You flip the switch. I start to move towards the light switch, and I begin losing control of my body. And it became a tremendous battle. I mean, it was physically painful. My head was really hurting. Like I was having like an instant, in that moment when I began to struggle against this, whatever this force was that was keeping me from moving, my head started to have a lot of pain. And I managed to force myself over to the light switch and flip the light. The light came on, and she was still standing there. Sitting there in the chair. And at that moment, I managed to, and I believe she, either whatever she was doing was waning, or I had a surge of abilities. But in that moment, I kicked her off of the chair, and she was gone, disappeared. I came back to my body, and it was a good 2 days before I managed to actually recover fully. My energy was I had headache, and my energy was very drained. Clearly I had been in some kind of a battle. But the question I kept asking was, what was happening? What was she doing? And my sense is, my current working hypothesis is, she was basically a scout. She was basically a scout, looking for potential, the same way like wasps kind of fly around, or really any animal, they kind of fly around, look for a potential place to build a nest. And they find it, and they build it. She was looking for these kinds of things, like places where a channel can be made. A place that has some physical instantiation. It may be in the lower astral, but there's a physical representation of it, or a physical version of it, which in this case was my room. And I suspect that a number of people would have actually been seduced by this scenario. A room full of gorgeous people who are having a great time, having fun, having sex, and everything is just the what was that movie about the F. Scott Fitzgerald? The Roaring Twenties. Everything was just gay and happy and fun, and everybody was just having a ball. And I'm sure a lot of people would have been tempted to get in on the party. And had that happened, that connection would have been kind of solidified or made a lot more strong. And this leads into another idea that has been percolating in my head for a couple of years now, that I really feel that there is a concerted effort on the part of some or many lower astral entities to infiltrate the physical reality more substantially, to get more of a handle on controlling the physical reality, to expand their influence more into the physical. Because I've had a number of experiences, like maybe 5 or 6 in the last couple of years, that would suggest that that's what's happening, that there is this front that's advancing from the lower astral into the physical, and they're making advances. that's kind of all I can really say for now. Anyway, that's that story.